Ranger Reject, Go Go Loser Ranger. Should you watch the anime or read the manga? People want to know, is the adaptation good enough to watch? I think this question is one that really deserves a few answers because it really just depends on you. Are you someone who hates reading and thinks the story looks cool? Do you want to see the full picture the way the mangaka envisioned it to be? Would it be okay if you watched and then picked it up from the manga from wherever the show leaves off? These are some of the questions that one might ask, and spoiler alert, I think the answer will pretty much always be that you should just read the manga. Today, I'll say why. I won't be reviewing the manga, but there will be some points that I'll bring up and compare them to the manga, and I'll say why I think either the anime or manga is better and let you decide. I'll be breaking down this into two sections. The first talking about the first season, and the second will mostly focus on the second season, obviously. So feel free to skip to the season 2 timestamp if you're someone that already watched season 1 and wants to hear about season 2, or you can skip into the final thoughts segment to hear my final thoughts about the entire adaptation. Fans of the series, feel free to chime on in the comments too, because you might have some helpful insight that I might have left out. But for starters, I want to say that I was very happy to hear that Ranger Reject got an anime. Since it's one of my favorite manga, it only makes sense that I would love this story to be animated so that it could reach a wider audience, but that also means the possibility of a great story being butchered or told in a way that reduces the quality or impact of, the writing. In season 1, there's a lot of great moments, especially in the first few episodes that I liked, but very early on, I want to say maybe around episode 3, it's made very clear that the guys making the anime are moving things around as far as when events happen in the anime versus in the manga. Moving events around isn't the end of the world, but it's still kind of jarring when it happens, but I understand sometimes it needs to be done to move from a manga medium to one with movement and voice acting. One of the main issues there is that the movement suffers a lot of times, especially later on in season 1 during the exam arc that takes place. There's a lot of goofy looking scenes that just looks like PNG cutouts being moved around on the screen, and I'm not an animator, so I'm not really in a place to say too much about it, but we've all seen good and bad animation before. Like I said, there are events that get moved around or changed, and one of the earliest examples of this is right after the first Ranger banquet when Red kills his junior first class. In the manga, the story then moves on to the foot soldiers' flying fortress, and Blue Battalion basically threatens them and leaves a couple of their guys behind to keep an eye on the invaders. At one point during this scene, one of the foot soldiers gets jumpy, basically saying, hey, this isn't fair, and he gets his head punched off by Blue Keeper. In the manga, this isn't done by Blue Keeper though, it's done by another member of the Blue Battalion, and I think it's changed to be Blue because they want the viewers to see more of his character before his moments come up later in the season. On paper, it makes sense, but I feel like this kind of ruined a moment that happens much later in the manga when the character who originally does do the punching tries to do it again, but he gets countered and someone makes a fool out of him. It feels like a great moment for that character to get the upper hand in that scene, but this Blue Battalion member looks foolish. It's a small detail that someone just watching the anime would never notice or think about, but being that I've read and watched, I just feel like this scene would hit a lot more if they kept it the original way. Another thing about this scene is that in the manga it happens after the banquet, but in the anime this happens before the banquet. After this, the scene where D is in the woods with Hibiki and Hikaru, these moments are sped up a ton. I honestly don't remember what was skipped, but I remember going, what the hell, when watching. Like half of the dialogue here was cut and moved to either a later episode or the final episode. Like the whole thing about like D not understanding how to take Sakurama's eyes when he transforms into him. That doesn't happen until much later, but in the manga that happens during this moment. With the Balong exam, I get it. This arc is long in the manga, and it's the one that loses people the most. I've seen more people drop the series here than any other part of the story, but even then, I still feel like they should not have cut corners here. There are some things that are skipped or moved, and some that just have zero impact when animated. Like the scene where D is walking through the smoke after he figured out his plan to fight Hisui and Tokita, and he's transforming into them one by one. It looks so much cooler in the manga, but when they animate it, it just looks stupid. It's like there's absolutely no sauce here in this moment. Like I said, I get wanting to speed up this arc, but now that we have the final product, I feel like I would have preferred to be, telling people, yeah, I know this arc is long, but stick with it because it'll be worth it in the end. If they had done a better job adapting without removing content versus now where I'm just like telling people not to watch the anime. All in all, I think season 1 is some fine junk food if you're someone just looking to add a number to your Annulist anime tracker or whatever, but I don't think it does a great job of giving you the story the way it could. There are some hype moments in this arc like D's transformation scene or D's fight with Blue that gets completely watered down when compared to the manga scene. I will say the anime voice acting is great though. I don't have any complaints there. The show really just suffers from them cramming 50 chapters worth of content into 12 episodes. I know people probably wouldn't have enjoyed Balong for 20 episodes, but there are ways to do it and make it not feel as bad, and that just wasn't done. More on that later, I guess, when I talk about season 2, but I just wanted to toss in that Jujutsu Kaisen season 1 was 24 or 25 episodes, and that covered about 50 to 60 chapters. Demon Slayer's first season was also about 25 episodes and covered about 54 chapters, so it can definitely be done, but this feels just like a Tokyo Ghoul or Promised Neverland situation where it's slapping 100 chapters into a single core. While not that severe, it's very visible. Moving on to season 2 though, man, it's rough. I'll say now, if you're someone who has finished season 1 and you're wondering if you should watch season 2, I'll tell you, my initial opinion has changed. Originally, I would have said, maybe check it out and see how season 2 fares, because it should cover the best parts of the story after Balong, but holy hell, do they zip through this shit, and it ain't pretty. The first 5 to 10 minutes of season 2 open with scenes that are anime original, and I don't hate them, but I don't agree with the way they're being done. I think more original scenes like this would have been fine, but the show as a whole would have been better if this was still just one season up to this point. The entire Sunday battle at the start doesn't happen in the manga, and the character who shows up at the very beginning, Wallypon, doesn't show up for another 30 chapters. After that Sunday battle, we move into the Dragon Keeper banquet scene, and it's mostly the same as in the manga, except this scene itself doesn't happen until much later also. I think the decision to add the filler at the beginning was also really to highlight the flaw in the Dragon Keeper's signature pose with the death of the Blue Dragon Keeper, and so having the banquet in episode 1 of season 2 lets us jump right into why Red is so hurt by it. When Izome cries and says she'll replace him, Red yells at her saying, "Not a chance, pipsqueak." In the manga, he calls her a midget, which is, I think, more true to his nature, being, I guess, a less nice word to use in this situation. But for the most part, this scene is used to show the comedic but terrifying nature of Sosei, the Red Keeper, by returning the gag of having him kill yet another of his juniors, this time for spilling tea all over him. It's a really interesting choice, but I think these decisions were made because in the content that takes place in the manga, where season 2 should be covering, the Red Keeper isn't present nearly at all. If this were a 100% faithful adaptation, I think we wouldn't be seeing him for the entire season, but it's also super weird pacing wise. Season 1 ended with 12 episodes with the Balong exam. I think that should have gone on for a little longer without them cutting or changing any of the content from season 1's material and then adding some of the fluff moments like this extra Sunday battle that was in season 2 episode 1. That way season 1 could adapt everything up to the point where the Dreamy School arc that takes place in season 2 ends. The things that happen directly after the meeting are pretty accurate though, with Dee and Hibiki's sister going for a walk and then seeing Chidori getting harassed by the cops. I will give props to the anime for this scene because in the manga they just kind of stumble upon it happening, but in the anime they show Chidori several times talking with civilians, so it helps his case when Dee goes to defend him, but I feel like at the same time they're also kind of just beating you over the head with a stick that says this guy is obviously important. At first, when I made it to the second episode, I was just thinking more about how I don't really mind the filler content. The issue is just the pacing and movements of events, because the scene with Yamato Benny in a ranger version of Iron Man's Jarvis while some random ranger is running away from a monster doesn't happen at all in the manga, but it hints at an arc that comes later. When I started this script, I had only watched the first 2 episodes and then I paused to go watch the rest. At the time of finishing this, episode 7 is out, and let's say Ranger Reject has maybe 5 or so arcs. The introduction, the Balong exam, the arc that happens directly after the Balong exam that gets focused on for these first few episodes, a short arc or 2 after that, and then a large scale arc being the 5th, major arc. I brought this up because season 2's OP comes here, the opening theme, and it shows scenes and characters from that 5th arc instead of the 3rd arc that we're, jumping into. And what makes it weird is that the major antagonist that is shown here, along with his power-ups and stuff like that, it isn't the antagonist from the 3rd arc that we're about to jump into. It's the antagonist from arc 5 that I was talking about. It's a very interesting choice, one that someone who's anime only probably won't catch or even care about, but it's just another decision that leads me to say you should just read this story instead, because it's showing stuff out of order. Like I was saying though, this arc takes place in the school. This is about 8 to 10 chapters in the manga, and many of the moments here are just straight up removed. There's a moment where Chidori meets with Magatia the snake and tells him to give it up or whatever before they fight. There's more to it. I'm leaving some dialogue out, but there's also a flashback that Magatia has to about 13 years ago when the war was still fresh with the invaders and the humans, and he had hijacked this cruise ship and some other stuff happens. This arc is already really short, so it just feels really weird to have them slice moments away from it. Following the Dreamy School arc in the battle with Magatia, there's 2 or 3 mini arcs that basically get axed. The gang immediately go and meet up at a diner that's run by Noah's family. In the anime, this scene is over quickly after Hisui and Dee fight over some food briefly, but in the manga, people from Dee's gang and the Balong exam enter, and they all get into an argument about who the strongest battalion and Dragon Keeper is until Suzukiri arrives and says obviously Yellow Battalion since they have 1,000 members, and she sours the mood. After this in the manga, Arabe invites Dee and Usakuba to his house to meet his his younger siblings, and they talk or whatever, and D gets to see more of how humans aren't so bad and all have things that they're fighting for. He sees that Arabe has his younger siblings that he wants to protect, but in anime, he just shows D a picture of his siblings on his smartphone, and the scene ends, completely skipping another moment where a mysterious character shows up here. They're named Wendy in the manga, and they're sad because they wanted to meet D in Usakubo, but he just missed them. So they completely skipped this scene, and I know a lot of fans were mad about this because, like, what the hell? You just cut a character out altogether, a brand new character. Anyway, after this, D and Suzukiri's date to assassinate Green goes as planned, but like I said, things have changed, moved, or sped up. D runs into Arabe here again and tries to get him to leave so that his life wouldn't be in danger. When he sees Arabe refuses, he then tries to attack him, but in anime, he never gives Arabe the chance to leave. The most egregious part of this arc that's ruined is that the Red Keeper shows up during this and burns down the woods because he's chasing some monsters and he's shooting at them with his fire gun or whatever. He figures he'll just blame the monsters until Chidori is like, yo, my house is nearby. So Chidori kind of gets him to stop, being crazy or whatever. And then Chidori covers for D and helping him not get caught by Red. And literally none of this happens in the anime at all. D spends the next few days trying to assassinate Chidori. And it's playful and silly, but it's still interesting because we get to see D actually trying to formulate a battle plan and strategy. And he's thinking about how his powers actually work before they head off into the zoo arc. In the zoo arc, though, there's a couple of small skirmishes. It's much more serious compared to what happens in the anime. Red doesn't do anything pretty much at all because he spends the entire time putting on his Dragon Keeper suit since he doesn't have his weapon and he can't automatically equip his suit. He has to put it on the regular way. At the end of this, D tries to kill him and manages to do so after tripping over a rock, and it makes him look stupid and lucky, where in the manga, D just catches Red off guard and walks up to him and backstabs him. No mistake or lucky tripping or anything that makes D look incompetent or stupid or anything like that. This scene is backed up with some really cool narration that talks about all of the related parties or factions that'll be involved in the next arc and how nobody is prepared for the storm that D, this seemingly insignificant foot soldier, would have unleashed. The anime completely butchers everything from the point that season 2 begins. I left out that during the zoo arc, my favorite character design in the entire manga shows up. There's a whole cool-ass invader character that shows up, and they just don't show that scene at all. So this character just doesn't exist. Season 2 starts at about chapter 53, and the arc that is about to begin with 5 or 6 episodes left ends at about chapter 135. 80 or so chapters crammed into 12 episodes is nuts. At first, I would say, yeah, it's cool. Watch season 1 and then see what season 2 has to offer and decide. But because season 2 is so damn bad, I just want to say that no matter what you do, you should just reread this from the beginning if you care even a little bit about the story, because they are not nailing it. This is not the adaptation where you just skip the manga for like you can do for some other stories lately. And this isn't just me ranting because my favorite moments don't look cool. This isn't like a situation where people were complaining about Gojo's Honored One moment in the anime not looking the same as it did on paper. That stuff was stupid. This is way more damage done. If you watch this anime and talk to someone who read the manga, you're basically talking about two completely different stories, and characters like D are not given the writing they deserve. I think at first they probably had a plan to do something great, but maybe scheduling or budgeting issues came along and they realized they just couldn't and wanted to just do their best. And I appreciate the anime for existing, for creating more potential fans, but this is absolutely a Tokyo Ghoul or Promised Neverland situation where it looked like it was gonna be great, but then they just shit the bed. The hot girl you met at the club removed her mask and was actually some weird executive or boss monster invader under her disguise. So please, read the manga. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button. Show me some support. Consider my words that I said in this video here. Let me know what you thought down below. Tell me how you feel about the anime. And if you're someone who heard how bad it got and, went to read it. I have a few friends who unfortunately are still anime only, and I'm trying to free them, convert them over to the path of righteousness. But at the end of the day, it's all comic books and cartoons. People are going to do what they're going to do, and it ain't that serious. But again, thanks for watching. More videos are coming. I want to try and get a few more Ranger videos out before the season finishes, so you should be hearing from me again soon. See ya.